One thing has surprised me a little bit, but I shouldn't be surprised by that by now. The unsurprising thing is that Robert Mueller has been circumspect in his answers. He has offered truncated answers. He has been very brief. He has said mostly, refer to the report. I don't want to comment on matters outside the report. And by the way, if I'm referring to matters inside the report, well, they speak for themselves. That creates almost an iron triangle of trying to get additional information or shed some light on that information. At the very least, it is useful to remind the American people, to get clarified with the American people, people who watch this, more people watching this and never read the report, about whether or not there was an array of obstruction of justice charges that would have been brought but for Department of Justice policy saying that they won't indict a sitting president of the United States. And by the way, Department of Justice policy is not the same as congressional law. It's not the same as the Constitution. It's not the same as legal principle. It's just the decision by this Department of Justice, this Republican Department of Justice, that they won't indict this sitting president. And the question is whether underlying that, one of the core questions facing the American people is, are there sufficient crimes that have been committed that would have been charged under other circumstances in the absence of that Department of Justice policy, that Attorney General Barr policy? He didn't invent the policy. He is seeing it through, however. Or, and therefore, whether there needs to be some other remedy. The other two remedies are, should this president be indicted after leaving office? And or should this president have to answer to articles of impeachment? Those are the alternative two parts, two pathways towards some degree of accountability. There has been at least one question that was interesting when, that I found particularly interesting. The thing I was going to say that I found surprising but I shouldn't, is the degree to which Republican members of Congress have been attacking Robert Mueller. Lifelong Republican, worked in Republican administrations, received a Bronze Star, has not gone significantly beyond the bounds of his purview to attack this president, hasn't done nearly as much as folks like Sarah Kendzior and others wishes he might to be a Nazi hunter. But nonetheless, they have, and while they have said, oh, there's nothing to see here, somehow they see there's nothing to see here, and yet they also spend almost all of their time and almost all of their questions attacking the investigation. I found that a little bit surprising. I maybe shouldn't. But there's been at least one answer to one question that is pretty darn important that Robert Mueller offered pretty quickly, pretty candidly. And let's play that clip right now.
Was there sufficient evidence to convict President Trump or anyone else with obstruction of justice?
We did not make that calculation.
How could you not have made the calculation with the regulation?
The OLC opinion, Office of Legal Counsel, indicates that we cannot indict a sitting president. So one of the tools that a prosecutor would use is not there.
Could you charge the president with a crime after he left office?
Yes.
You believe that you could charge the president of the United States with obstruction of justice after he left office?
Yes, but the OLC opinion says that the prosecutor, while he cannot bring a charge against the sitting president, nonetheless he can continue the investigation to see if there are any other persons who might be drawn into the conspiracy.
Let's be clear. That is an enormous moment because of the, I'd call it maybe legalistic language of the report, because it was in a written report, because Robert Mueller is, while strong-jawed, a pretty soft-spoken person. Because of the, because of, I just have to call them lies of the president and the Republican apparatus. It has been, because there have been so many false tweets that have said no obstruction, no justice, no justice, Freudian slip, no obstruction, no collusion, nothing to see or full exoneration. Each of those just patently false. It has clouded what Robert Mueller just said. Let's be clear, and we're going to play that clip again because it is so enormously important. What he just said was the reason they did not indict, the reason they did not fully evaluate the question of indicting was because of the policy. Not exoneration, but because of the policy. Because this president, under that policy, is, for the time being, above the law. He also said that there were grounds, that there was justification for, that it would be allowed to indict the president after he weren't president any longer. That's a big deal. So the question is raised, are those crimes that could be indicted when the president left office or when he leaves office that can't be indicted now under this Department of Justice policy, not the law, not the Constitution, just their policy, their choice, their repeated choice, not just choice in this instance, their repeated choice not to indict. But just because of that policy that is blocking the ability to indict the president, once that policy is no longer in place, that he could be and would be indicted, maybe even should be indicted, the question then comes for the Congress, is that the kind of thing that qualifies as high crimes and misdemeanors? We know that that question is foreclosed for Fox News. We know that that question is foreclosed for every member of the Republican Party in Congress. I think every single one. Justin Amash is no longer a Republican. I think almost none of them read the report. I haven't heard in question. Lindsey Graham said didn't read the report repeatedly over and over, say didn't read the report. But we know the question is foreclosed for them. The question is not foreclosed for the American people. It's not foreclosed for Congress. And Robert Mueller just gave, despite all of his truncated, circumspect answers, maybe the most important answer he could have given to any question.